What is up, Packers Nation? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button. Make sure you do everything you need to do to get 365 days a year of Packers content. Where else would you rather get it from? Today, we're going to be going over, of course, the Packers' third and final OTA session that was open to the media. Of course, next week we have mini camps. Right now it is scheduled for 3 open mini camps. However, almost every single time one of those gets canceled for a team building activity, but we still should have 2 open sessions next week. But this was our third and final OTA session. I did think this one had a lot more energy. I thought it was more active. I thought we had a lot more action and things to actually review and go over. The last couple were a little bit more nondescript, not as many team periods. This one was a pretty fun practice, and like I said, a lot more takeaways. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Only one thing to go over before we get there, and it's still very related, and that is Brian Gutekunst, who was on 97.3 The Game, friends of the Pack-A-Day Podcast, talking with Zabe and Brian Butch about a Jordan Love contract extension. And the takeaway here was that, per Brian Gutekunst, both the Packers and Jordan Love are working diligently to get this contract done before the start of training camp. It sounds like that is the goal. It sounds like both sides are working to accomplish that. As he mentioned, these things are never fast. It takes time. It takes just a lot of, going back and forth and reviewing everything from the contract details to length of the contract, just all of it, right? Like these are not easy conversations. And as I've talked about in the past, like there's just no precedence for these sort of situations Green Bay gets themselves into. I'm not saying it's a bad thing in any way, but like when you go from a quarterback who doesn't play almost their entire career up until their 4th year in their career, and then goes on the first 8 games to be kind of a okay season, and then just completely crushes it the remainder of the season. Like, all right, how do we value that? And I think we know, clearly Jordan Love is going to be the guy. Clearly he is the franchise quarterback. He is going to get paid. But those are very complex negotiations with any QB1 for any team, but it brings that much more complexity to the table with Jordan Love because of his unique situation and circumstance that just doesn't happen all that much in the NFL. But again, it sounds like every side is very much wanting to get this done, and training camp makes sense. I've talked about preseason. I said I'm not going to be worried up until about, right around that third and final preseason game, but you don't necessarily want to get into preseason and there having to be conversations between Jordan Love and his agent and the Packers of like, hey, we're not going to play these if we don't have a contract done. We're not going to risk a catastrophic or, season-ending injury or anything like that in a preseason game if we don't get this deal done. And you don't want that hovering over preseason. I'm sure you'd like to get him some snaps, at some point, whether that's just in one game, one drive. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm sure you'd like to play him in some capacity, and you don't want those conversations to have to take place. Though, we've heard and talked about the immaculate vibe of this team right now and how they're very tight knit. And like the last thing you want is any sort of, I don't think anything would divide that locker room by any means, but you just don't want any cloud hanging over anything with Jordan Love's contract not being done. So I do think that these sides will get this done right around or before the start of training camp. And hopefully that allows, Jordan Love not to have any of those concerns going into preseason. All right, let's get into the OTA itself. Again, final OTA that is open to the media. And next week we go into mini camps. And then after that, we get a little bit of that lull before the actual start of training camp, which, as I always say, will be here before you know it. The first thing was attendance. For the first time, they had 100% attendance totally at this OTA session. Remember, the first one, Robert Rochelle was missing. And the second one, Preston, Rashawn, and Elton Jenkins were missing. This one, Preston, Rashawn, and Jenkins were all back. They had 100% attendance at this voluntary OTA, and you just love to see it. And you can tell how bought in this group of players is, getting there every day and being a part of, just this group that cares so much about football. You can tell they, as we've talked about, eat, sleep, and breathe it. And it's contagious. It seems very contagious to the rest of this group. And getting, I think, those 3 veterans back in Preston, Rashawn, and Elton, and just having that attendance just goes to show you, again, the tight-knitness of this group, but also, again, how how focused that this group is and trying to get better and make that run this upcoming season with a very, very talented football team. Not practicing from the players that were there were Tucker Kraft, which again, we knew about, Kitano Ladapo, which we knew about, Zach Tom, which we knew about, Tyler Davis still recovering from that ACL injury, and then Jair Alexander. And interestingly enough, surprisingly enough, I did not get to go to the press conference after the practice today. I had to come home and I did a radio hit, neither here nor there, but nobody asked about Jair's injury, which seemed very, very odd and weird. So we don't know what's going on with Jair or why he was not practicing, but hopefully he's back. It did not seem to be anything crazy. I've talked about this quite a few times, but usually how it works is like Tucker Kraft, for instance. Tucker Kraft is in no jersey, in no football attire whatsoever. He's in sweatpants. He's still got the sling on. That's like, very clear and obvious. All right, he's still a ways away. We're not even having him do anything. Certain players are only going to do, warm-ups or on the exercise bikes or certain things like that. And then other players are going to, actually do things on the outside. Now, Jair was not doing any work on the outside with a trainer or anything like that. So you don't get that good news, but he was on the exercise bikes. It didn't seem like this was anything to be, crazy concerned about. He didn't have his arm in a sling, nothing in a cast, no crutches, no walking boot, nothing like that. So don't know what the reason was, unfortunately, but hopefully Jair is back for mini camp next week, or if not that, at least training camp come end of July. Return to practice were Alex Magoo, Lucas Van Ness, Josh Jacobs in full. He actually did team drills today, so it seems like Josh Jacobs is officially back, and Emmanuel Wilson returned as well. So those 4 players returned to practice. However, we did have one of those players fall out of practice, and that was also Alex Magoo again. I don't know if his injury just kind of flared up, but he did some work in individual drills, and he caught a pass down the field. And then after he got, he was seen going to the Don Hutson Center, and then he came back with just his hat and did not participate in the remainder of practice. So our return of Alex Magoo was unfortunately very short-lived, and hopefully that injury can stop flaring up on him, and hopefully he can get out there, because for a guy that is already, late 20s, trying to make a transition from quarterback to wide receiver, you don't necessarily want to be missing any time at this point. So I feel a little bit for Alex Magoo. Your starters on offense. We only go over like the offensive line on offense. We know it was Jordan Love. Wide receivers and tight ends get moved around endlessly, and there's not really sort of a rhyme and reason for it. So who the starters were is less important. I will note the running back on this occasion. Josh Jacobs, as I mentioned, was back, and he was the starter with the ones, I should say, at running back. Your starting offensive line, however, is usually a bit more intriguing. Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Elton Jenkins at left guard, Josh Myers at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, and Jordan Morgan at right tackle. We saw a lot of moving pieces, again, along the offensive line, but on this particular day, it was Jordan Morgan at right tackle. Remember, it had been Andre Dillard in previous OTA sessions. Your starting defense, Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary along the edge, TJ Slayton and Devontae Wyatt at defensive tackle, Eric Wilson, Quay Walker, and Isaiah McDuffie as your linebackers in a 4-3. When it was in nickel, it was Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper, but the first play was a 4-3. So Wilson, Quay, and McDuffie have been your linebackers in those scenarios. Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine were your corners with Jair out. And then Xavier McKinney and Anthony Johnson Jr. were your safeties. Anthony Johnson Jr. has kept that starting spot in all 3 of the OTAs. One noteworthy thing here is Kenny Clark has not been doing any team activities these past couple weeks. He's doing all the individual drills. I don't know if this is just a wear and tear thing. He did line up for team when they did walkthroughs, when it was at, again, like 10% pace, but no actual team activities for Kenny Clark. Again, he's practicing, he's doing individuals. I wouldn't be concerned about it, but just an interesting note to kind of take note of here. Let's start with the play of the day, because it happened very early in practice. I don't know what the actual situation scenario was, if it was third downs or play action. They usually have different scripts for this stuff, but I do know I think we're doing a lot of play action at this time, but it was Jordan Love play action, deep shot down the field from the 25-yard line, their own 25-yard line, hits Bo Melton deep in stride, probably like, I don't know, 45, 50, 55 yards in air for a 75-yard touchdown. Bo Melton had easy separation, great route, utilized his speed to separate at the end, and he had beat both Eric Stokes and Anthony Johnson Jr. down the field for a huge explosive play. Absolute dime by Jordan Love. Like I said, Bo Melton, great route, great hands, caught it, ran through it, and went easily for the touchdown on the play. Big time explosive play for the number one offense to kick things off. And like I said, that was very early in practice. And then I thought the defensive backs the remainder of the day were fantastic. You know, Carrington Valentine had multiple plays in coverage. Corey Ballantyne had a great play in coverage. Javon Bullard had a couple plays. Kalen King had great coverage on Christian Watson. There were multiple coverage sacks throughout the course of practice. I thought for the first time, even without Jair Alexander, we really saw this brand of football from Jeff Hafley, a lot more press coverage, a lot more man-to-man, and the corners were extremely sticky in this practice. And I don't mean that from like a holding standpoint. I mean, they were all over in all the best ways, these Packers wide receivers, and Jordan Love did not have a lot of opportunity to find players downfield. So it was great that the offense got that huge play to Bo Melton. Obviously not great for the defense, but after that, I thought the defense really sharpened up and made things extremely difficult for the offense. A couple missed throws in there as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but overall, I thought the coverage was phenomenal in this given practice. All right, next I want to talk about the rookie linebackers and sort of a couple others, specifically one here, sort of kind of play of the day type stuff. The first one was a stretch play to Marshawn Lloyd, almost a identical play to something that happened in rookie minicamp, where it was a stretch play to the left to Marshawn Lloyd. And Lloyd, again, has that great burst to the outside, something that he displayed in college all the time. He's going outside, and Tyron Hopper is all over that thing and utilized his speed and athleticism to get to, meet Marshawn Lloyd. I think in the backfield, probably more of like a 1-yard loss here, but really nice play for Marshawn Lloyd. Later in practice, the holy bleep moment of practice was Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper made a play. I don't know if it was a toss or a stretch play to Josh Jacobs, but Josh Jacobs looks great, by the way. And he's trying to get to the outside, and Edgerrin Cooper just finds a gap. I don't know who was supposed to pick him up or what happened, but Edgerrin Cooper finds a gap, and we're talking in a flash, like 3-yard loss behind the line of scrimmage. I was standing next to Paul Brettel at the time, and Paul Brettel and I both just kind of did look at each other like, whew, like that was different. That was special. And you just see this raw athleticism. I don't even want to say raw, just pure athleticism from Edgerrin Cooper, and his ability to knife into the backfield and not only just get meet him at the line of scrimmage or something like that, which if you meet Josh Jacobs at the line of scrimmage from your linebacker spot, that's a really good play. To get there 3 yards in the backfield in a flash, in an instant, and have nobody, be able to get a hand on him it was surreal to watch just how explosive he was on that particular play. Like I said, it was one of those that in real time, I marvel at it all the time, how somebody can be that athletic or stand out as that athletic in a group full of the most athletic people in the world. But that was a wow play from Edgerrin Cooper. And it just, like I said, both Paul and I were doing a double take after the play and checking with each other like that just happened. It was a special athletic moment from Edgerrin Cooper, and hopefully a harbinger of things to come from him for the foreseeable future at linebacker for Green Bay. Another player who had a very good day was Brenton Cox. Last week, it was Deslin Alexander with a couple sacks. Today, it was Brenton Cox, and he had a huge sack in the 2-minute drill against the ones that we'll talk about, but also had another one in team activities. So a 2-sack day for Brenton Cox. He looks good. He looks like he's got the right size for his body type. He looks like he's a little, like explosive's probably like the wrong word, especially coming off just talking about Edgerrin Cooper in that same vein. But he looks very, very good athletically. I think he's definitely taken a step with just his overall like body and like where it's supposed to be from a season ago. Looks like he, put on some muscle and some lean mass, and he looks like he's flying around out there. So he looks good. I've noticed him a couple times before in a couple of the other OTAs as well, but a 2-sack day for Brenton Cox will certainly get his name a little bit more involved in that. It's certainly that number 5 edge rusher spot behind LVN, Inigbare, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary. Next up, we saw our first, I think, real significant glance at the big nickel. And we saw a lot of different versions of this, but in a few different occasions, Javon Bullard was in the slot. There was one occasion where they used him in the slot, and this is some of the stuff that we're going to have to talk about over time with some of the man-to-man coverage is, teams are going to use a lot of man beaters and pick plays and rubs on these man concepts from Green Bay. In this particular play, it was Javon Bullard in the slot versus Jayden Reed, and Bullard had him. He gets kind of picked through the play, has to kind of get through everything. He's a half step or a step behind Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed's got that step, and unfortunately, Jordan Love just overthrew him a little bit on that particular play. But those are the sort of things that this defense is going to see over and over if they do start playing a ton of man coverage. So those are the things they're going to have to prepare for. But I thought overall, Javon Bullard looked good playing in the slot. But you saw different versions of Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Anthony Johnson Jr., different 3 safety sets. Again, specifically Javon Bullard playing in the slot. They were throwing things around. The safeties were moving. They were disguising everything. It was a really fun practice to watch from a safety side of things, but you love to see that movement. You love to see the creativity. I do think with guys like Javon Bullard and Evan Williams, there's some different things that they're going to be able to do. Maybe even do like a deep safety with McKinney with both safeties playing offset next to the deep safety. Like, I'm just so excited about, I think, the versatility that this safety group is going to bring. And I think Jeff Hafley is not going to be afraid to be creative with these guys. You can see that they're scheming up some stuff already that I think is going to come be very interesting come regular season time. And I think we got a little bit of a glimpse of that. We'll see how much they use that. We saw some Keyshawn Nixon, of course, in the slot. We saw a little Kalen King in the slot, but whether it's Bullard or whoever they use, I do think we are going to see some 3 safety sets this upcoming season, to say the least. 2-minute drills. Number 2s started the 2-minute drills. Corey Ballantyne, great coverage on Malik Heath to start things off. You then had a sack/PBU. So sometimes with these sacks, because the quarterback doesn't actually get taken to the ground, the quarterback will continue the play. So on the play that continued, Bullard had great coverage. I think it was Sims, the tight end. I'm almost positive. But he had great coverage on Sims, had a great PBU on the play. But they called it a sack. I don't think anyone, I asked around, I don't think anyone actually saw who got the sack on the play. But it was a great, overall defensive play. And then Bullard was sort of gifted a pick from Sean Clifford and had the opportunity to high point it and pick it off and just could not hold on to it. So they got another snap. And then on that particular snap was one of those coverage snaps that we talked about. Great coverage down the field. Sean Clifford had nowhere to go with it. And Aaron Mosby came away with the sack on that one. So a quick 4 and out for the number 2s on offense and another great display from the defense. The number 1s then took over for the number 2 for the 2-minute drill. Started with a throwaway based on, guess what? Great coverage. The coverage was, again, very impressive. Then you had Love to Wicks for 10 yards out of bounds, just a quick out. Valentine had good coverage on the play, but overall, it was a better throw, better completion, and Wicks got out of bounds on it as well. Love to Musgrave over the middle, Love to Wicks over the middle, then Love to Melton over the middle. These were like 8-yard plays where they were, eating some clock, but they were picking up the requisite yardage that they needed. After the Melton play, they called a timeout. You then had incomplete to Watson with Stokes with great coverage. And then you had, again, great coverage down the field, which led to a Brenton Cox sack. Again, he had a phenomenal day. Coming up with a sack against the 1s in 2-minute drill is always going to be a big thing. That led to, after the sack, a 57-yard field goal attempt. They attempted it 3 times, once with each kicker. If Jack Podlesny was the kicker, it was a miss. So I guess the defense wins that round. If Anders Carlson or Joseph were the kickers, they both made theirs. So I guess the offense picked up in that scenario, it would have been a tie. They were down by 3 going into that 2-minute drill. The number 3s, Michael Pratt came on. His first pass was low and behind Julian Hicks. And then you had Pratt to Hicks for 8 yards. You had an incomplete pass after that on a rollout. And then on 4th and 1 or 2 yards, it was a pass to Malik Heath. And unfortunately, Malik Heath dropped a slant, which ended the 2-minute drill for the number 3 offense. Kicking competition on the day, I thought overall it was pretty good. Anders Carlson went 6 of 7. Joseph went 6 of 7. And Podlesny went 5 for 7. I'll say this. I thought Anders Carlson looked really, really good and much, much better this week. And I thought he looked just more natural than the other two. You know, Podlesny on his long kicks is putting his whole body into it to try to get the energy there. He hooked one far left on, I think, a 57-yarder just to try to get the leg on it. Joseph, he has a bigger leg certainly than Podlesny, but again, it just doesn't pop off of his foot quite the way that it does for Anders. Anders, that ball just explodes off of his foot. I thought this was a big day. And then at the end of practice, what they did was they did a 53-yard field goal attempt for all three kickers. But it wasn't just any 53-yard field goal attempt. The music got turned up full blast. It was blaring. You had the entire team jumping up and down, causing chaos, making noise, like in a bubble, basically surrounding the kicker. Guys were taking their water bottles and spraying water at them as they're getting ready to kick. Podlesny missed his 53-yarder, and then Joseph missed his 53-yarder, and then Anders Carlson, last play of practice, comes up, everyone again doing their thing, making it crazy. He crushes his 53-yarder to end practice. The entire group of players explodes. They celebrate with him. It was kind of a cool moment. Matt LaFleur said after, what a phenomenal, what a way to end practice. So that was kind of a cool, kind of moment there for Anders Carlson. I don't care what you thought of Anders last year. Let's just be clear here. For the three kickers that remain in camp, Anders, Joseph, and Podlesny, there is zero question whatsoever that Anders is the most talented leg of any of those three. Your hope, I know a lot of people are like, cut Anders. And I understand. If he cannot be consistent, that needs to get done at some point. You have to have a consistent kicker. But everyone's hope going into training camp and mini camps next week should be that Anders figures it out. Because this is not a kicker that's lacking for leg talent at all. Like I said, the ball explodes off of his foot, and it's just now finding that accuracy and that rhythm. If he gets that, look out. He's going to be kicking 40, 50 plus yarders with ease because he's got that leg strength, and now it's just finding that accuracy. So I don't care, again, like what your thoughts of him in the past are. Everyone should be unified in the thought of, let's get him kicking the best as he possibly can. I thought in this practice, he was, even though I think he made the same amount as Joseph, he was head and shoulders just very clearly the best kicker in this particular practice. I'm not crowning him. I'm not saying give him the job. I'm not saying cut the other two guys. I'm not saying don't have a competition. I'm saying that, he still has a long way to go. Anders is going to have to earn this job, but it should be everyone's hope that he does, because he figured out how to be an NFL kicker, worked out some of the kinks, got on the same page as his holder and his long snapper. And now you end up with this very young, very talented kicker that found his rhythm and accuracy. If you can find that with a dude with that type of leg, look out. He can be a big time kicker in this league. So the hope should be that he figures it out. But I get it. If he doesn't, then those conversations need to be had. But this is a good day overall for Anders Carlson. Some miscellaneous notes from practice. AJ Dillon's build looks different. He looks a bit more spry, a bit more svelte. And I say svelte with AJ Dillon in very much, not jest, but he is still a built dude. I'll put it that way. He's got muscles on muscles, but it does feel like he's leaner and more fit, and not quite as bulky and boxy and, tougher stop to start. It does seem like there's a little bit more of a hop in his step this year. And I know that's, again, something that Dillon's been very cognizant of, trying to be a little bit more spry in playmaking. Hopefully this is what can kind of set him free a little bit. This is a big year for AJ. He did not get the deal he wanted in free agency. If he has a really nice year this year, he's going to have the opportunity to have a bigger payday next offseason. But he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. And I'm excited to see what he looks like when the pads come on, because, again, right now he does look a little bit of a, maybe a half step quicker than what he has in the past. Some other notes. I thought this was a little bit of a tough day for Malik Heath. Had that drop pass in the 2-minute drill. I just thought he struggled to get open. Carrington Valentine had a fantastic day. He was chirping with Malik Heath quite a bit. He was really bringing the energy. I love that version of Carrington Valentine. He is so fun to watch out on the practice field and in game film too. But he's just bringing that swagger, that intensity. He is a corner incarnate. He was meant to play corner in the NFL. He was meant to talk smack, and he had a good day in coverage. And like I said, Malik Heath struggled to separate from him. Daniel Whalen, my goodness, he looks phenomenal. there were a couple punts that he crushed. And I'm not talking about just down the field. The hang time has been ridiculous. His leg looks stronger. It looks like he's got his hang time down to a science. Like he's still booming them down the field. It looks fantastic. Like I don't know if you can be, I guess, a star in 3 OTA sessions or get like player of the OTAs so far, but Waylon has been phenomenal in these 3 OTA sessions. He looks great, and hopefully they don't need him a ton. Hopefully he doesn't get to punt a lot, but when they do need him, he looks like he's ready to go. Like I said before, even going back to last year, I think they truly found their punter. He looks really great in OTA so far. We've now seen Jordan Morgan at, I think, every position besides center. He moved around quite a bit again. Left tackle, right tackle, played inside at guard again a little bit. They're I think, I'm sure, trying to find, not only best 5, but what is Jordan's best position and how versatile can he be? There's a couple of hang with him moments, one specifically against Rashawn Gary. He also just, again, the movement skills for Jordan are just off the charts and really, really fun to watch. So there's going to be some things that he's going to have some growing pains. Like I said, Rashawn went through him on one particular play, but overall, you love the versatility there. I think he's mostly been as advertised so far, and getting those moments against Rashawn Gary, those are only going to make him stronger as time goes on. I believe Luke Musgrave is already starting to look more smooth and confident. And we've talked about like he needs to almost like slow down a little bit so his body can kind of catch up with his mind and he can just kind of get that rhythm going. It feels that way already. No major play in OTA today, but it just the simple stuff, him going through individual drills. I think he had 1 catch in team activities. He looks more confident. He looks more natural. I think that's the way to put it. He looks much more natural as just like a pass catcher, knows what he's doing. I think just sort of his full, all of his traits are coming out more just naturally than maybe they did when last year. It just seemed like he was maybe trying to do a bit too much. And last but not least, I'm going to finish with Bo Melton, kind of where we started with that big play. He has been as advertised so far. He's been fantastic. Big play down the field. He's caught everything thrown his way over 3 OTA sessions. He's separating. He's getting good. He's improving as a route runner. And then again, he's got great hands. And Matt LaFleur was extremely complimentary of him post-practice, also saying that he's one of the best blocking wide receivers on the team. I don't know if anyone was thinking that like Bo Melton might not make the 53, but like lock that dude in. He looks fantastic. And I like I've said, I'm buying all the Bo Melton stock I can find. He's been, like I said, as advertised, and expect him to have, I think, a really, really good upcoming season, taking right off where he was at the end of 2023. All right, I think that is actually going to do it today. Like I said, a lot of takeaways. More, the 2-minute drills were interesting. We got to see some big nickel. Brenton Cox with a 2-sack day, big play down the field to Bo Melton. The big thing though, and of course, an awesome Edgerrin Cooper play as well, but I thought the coverage was outstanding in this particular practice. And you can see Jeff Hafley's getting these guys a little bit psyched up, and I think playing a way that they want to play. And we're hopefully going to see that defense, utilize those days like today to hopefully propel them moving forward and keep that momentum going, because I think this is going to be a very fun brand of football that this Jeff Hafley defense is going to play this upcoming year. All right, that is going to do it for me today. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members: Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Jay Bardad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donna Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Bremen, David Prendergast, Dan Miller, Alex Wong. Wait for it. Got to nail this one. Arnaldo Espinoza. I did it. I promised you, I guaranteed it. I wouldn't screw it up for a 3rd day in a row. Appreciate all of you for becoming Pack-A-Day Podcast, YouTube Hall of Fame and All-Pro members. Shout out to all of our members. Make sure to check those out. There's some great content that's going to be coming your way. Bonus video this week. Not 1,000,000% sure on the Q&A day yet for the members only Q&A, but that's going to be coming up the remainder of this week. So check out those Pack-A-Day Podcast memberships. You can get in the door for as low as $3.99, and there's some other great tiers that are available to you as well. I will see you all tomorrow here for a brand new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. But until next time, and as always, go Pack-Go.